Hi, everyone. We are going to continue with our series of rum reviews, all of them, by talking about a company that we don't hear very much about anymore, but and of which there aren't really that many reviews out there, and that is the now defunct distillery of Tenkan. Tenkan was and remains a somewhat of a peculiarity in the rum making world because this was a fashion brand attempt to create a distillery from scratch using some very exacting and interesting equipment. So this was Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, and they in 2003 decided, for whatever reasons of their own, that they were going to ship two Charente pot stills that were used to make cognac over to Trinidad, and they were going to distill cane juice rums and sell them. Now, this was done with the help and the logistical support of Angostura. And as far as I recall, they set up shop in Ursin Sainte Marie or somewhere like that. And this was started in 2003. And I'd say a year later, they started to produce rum and lay it down to age. They never actually produced any white rums. So, two pot stills, a fashion brand with a history of making cognac, Trinidad, cane juice distillate. I mean, it really sounds like something very interesting. But unfortunately, what ended up happening is that for whatever reason, they couldn't sustain it, or the sales simply weren't large enough to continue committing money and funds and resources to the project. And in 2015, they decided to fold their tents, shut up shop, and get out of Dodge. Why? I really am not sure. I think that they were a little too early in the game. I mean, the real rum renaissance is post 2010, actually post 2012, 2013, right? Independent bottlers were still thin on the ground. People were still drinking 40% blends left, right, and center. Cane juice rums weren't really known for being like the bee's knees the way they are now. And like Renegade more recently found in Grenada, it's a lot easier to set things up when, with your seed capital, but it's a little harder to make consistent cash flow when people don't know what you're doing. And the marketing, even though I know it was there and I have seen 10K, the original 10K bottlings around and about from time to time, I never really saw a serious marketing push the way, for example, Velier promoted Hampton, or themselves for that matter, or 1423 just pops up everywhere with masterclasses, the way the Black Tot has Mitch Wilson and these incredible brand ambassadors. They just didn't have any of that. Now, they did export bulk product to Europe from time to time. And the reason I know this is because there are a lot of independent bottlers out there who, in the subsequent years post 2015, picked up and started to issue limited release cask strength bottlings. One of them was Compagnie des Indes. Now, this is a little company in France run by a very good friend of mine called Florent Boucher, and you wouldn't miss the guy if you ever run into him, because he always has these bright Hawaiian shirts on. He's got a sailor's cap. He's kind of out and about in the festival circuit, and he's just an all-around nice guy. I mean, I bought quite a few off of him over the years, and he was the one who actually spotted me the Hampton 35-year-old that he had made for the Hong Kong market. I mean, he certainly has his stuff together. Now, he started by making single cask bottlings, just like many of the other indies do, but he has now branched out a little bit into blends. So he has he has these fragrantly named titles as like the Dominador, the Dark Lights, the Caraibes, the Tricorn, and so on, where he mixes and matches various various pieces from the islands to produce and apparently those things sell better than his single cask offerings do, which is something of thing, because of course many independent bottlers who pass a certain stage in the development also find the same thing. The halo bottlings, the single cask stuff, is sometimes a bit too pricey. It costs like 80 to 120 euros, and not everybody wants to pay that. But if you blend some stuff together and it tastes reasonably good, then you can make bigger margins and more cash flow out of that, which then supports your efforts in the high-end market, right? 4023 does it, Rum Deluxe does it, and there's quite a few others like that. They've got like several tiers of their own products, you might say. Okay, back to Compagnie des Indes. So they have produced a rum that was from Tenkan, and it was distilled in 2012 and then bottled in 2021. It's a 9-year-old, and it's been taken together at a very robust 57.9%. The bottle itself says 226. Now, this is actually a mini that I bought so that I could save on my money. I mean, I'm as penurious as everybody else is. But I have noticed that the full 26 CL bottle, or sorry, the 750 ml bottle, that tends to have 126 on it, although perhaps I could have been reading a very spotty label. I'm not entirely sure. Be that as it may, this is a rum that doesn't quite gel, and I'll try and explain that in more detail. I'm just giving you the summary before I go into that. Yeah, see, when you smell it, first of all, you're not actually getting a whole shitload of agricole style profile here. The herbaceousness and the grassiness and the green notes aren't really there. You can still kind of like sense them, but it's more of a sense than an actual impression that you're getting on your nose. What you are getting, however, is figs, pomegranates. You're getting some dark honey, caramel, vanilla, a bit of dark fruits, nutmeg, cumin, cinnamon. It's nice. There's no question about that. I mean, the barrel definitely had its influence on this, and as far as I know, it's ex-bourbon, right? Except that, at that point, it starts to obscure the cane juice side of things. Now, when you taste it, and I've had this on the go for quite a bit, I always squirrel away a sample of these things whenever I can. It is a little bit more of the agricole side comes out, but not a whole lot more, just enough that you can get a stronger sense of it. And, it's got some brine, some olives, there's some cream cheese, there's also rum cake, that black cake that the West Indians so love at their weddings and what have you. A citrus note starts to take a much more forward thing. You do get peaches, plums, prunes, some dark fruit and so on, but it's the citrus that kind of takes front at that point in time. At 57.9%, the finish actually was surprisingly long, but it added nothing new to the party, and it pretty much went its own way after a while. My issue with this thing is that the flavors don't really play that well together. They certainly are there. You can smell, you can smell them, you can taste them and so on, but it's like one and then the other, and then they all kind of squabbling in the sandbox, and you just don't know what the fuck they're doing. And in that case, some of the joy of the experience is somehow lost. And I don't mean to say that it's a bad rum. It's not. It's actually quite good. But I wouldn't go higher than 81, 82 points on it. And essentially, that's what I'm going to score it. There's very little more to add to this saga, but there's two things about 10K I want to point out. One is that after they closed, the remaining stock went over to Foursquare for storage, I would imagine. At least that's what I've been told. And then they got shipped over to Europe for sale to the various brokers and so on. But nothing was ever made at Foursquare, in case there's any sort of doubt about that. The second thing is that there have been rumors, never confirmed, at least not by me, that at some point they tried to mix a little bit of molasses-based pot still distillate in with the cane juice distillate to come up, to put a little bit more body into it, a little bit more heaviness and so on. Again, unconfirmed, right? I did contact Florent directly about this rum last week, in point of fact, and he very kindly answered me almost immediately to say, yep, no, absolutely not. Cane juice all the way, barrel aged. That's the only change that's been made. So there you go. That's it. I'm going to wrap it up here. It's already a little bit too long, and you know how I like to talk too much. But it is a rum that's worth getting if you can, but don't pay too much for it either. This is, at 81 points, you're kind of like on the margins of whether something is value for money or not. But if you do have any information on 10K in particular, or the process that led to its creation, its production, and its dissolution, I'd really like to know about it. I know I've done as much research as I possibly could to give it to you here, but I'm sure there's some details here that I haven't quite squirreled away. So let me know if you have any comments, as always. And until the next review, which will also be a 10K in rum, but from another company, I will say goodbye and have a very, very good evening. Take care, everybody. Bye.